For over 2 decades, the Harry Potter films have cast an unbreakable spell over millions around the world. From the moment the first movie hit theaters in 2001, fans have grown up with the magical trio, Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint, and watched them transform from wide-eyed children into global icons. But behind the wands, the spells, and the enchanting world of Hogwarts, there were secrets, deep, emotional truths that the cast carried for years. Now, after more than 20 years since the saga began, the Harry Potter cast is finally opening up. They've revealed details that fans never knew, moments hidden behind the laughter, the fame, and the carefully controlled interviews. The truth about on-set rivalries, personal struggles, quiet heartbreaks, and the unexpected way the story changed their lives forever. This isn't just another behind-the-scenes tale. It's a revelation about friendship, fame, and the cost of living inside a fantasy world that millions believed in. The cast's confessions peel back the curtain, showing what really happened in those years that shaped their youth, and the burden that came with being part of something far bigger than themselves. From Daniel's secret struggle to Emma's hidden decision that nearly changed the franchise forever, and Rupert's heartbreaking realization about fame, this is the untold story the world never figured out. The magic of Harry Potter wasn't just in the spells. It was in the people who brought it to life. When Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone premiered in 2001, Daniel Radcliffe was only 11 years old. To the world, he was the perfect Harry, the chosen one, plucked seemingly by destiny to bring J.K. Rowling's most beloved character to life. But while audiences saw the lightning bolt scar and the round glasses, few realized how heavy the weight of that role would become for a boy who had never known fame before. Daniel often described his early days on set as a dream come true, yet behind the excitement was a growing sense of pressure. Overnight, his life was no longer his own. He couldn't walk through a park, attend school normally, or make simple mistakes without the world noticing. The Harry Potter machine was massive. Interviews, global tours, endless publicity. And Daniel was at the center of it all. In later interviews, he revealed that as the years went on, the fame began to take a quiet toll. Everyone wanted a piece of Harry Potter, he said, but they forgot I was Daniel. The boundary between his real identity and the fictional one began to blur. By the time he was a teenager, the stress of maintaining perfection, always smiling, always humble, always grateful, became overwhelming. While filming The Goblet of Fire, Daniel began to feel isolated. The long shooting hours and strict schedules left little time for a normal childhood. His co-stars, Emma Watson and Rupert Grint, noticed the change. "He carried so much on his shoulders," Emma once said. "He never complained, but you could see it in his eyes. That kind of exhaustion that fame brings too early." As the franchise grew darker, so did Daniel's internal struggles. He turned to alcohol to cope, using it as a way to quiet the noise of expectation and escape from the image of perfection the world demanded. It was a secret he carried for years, even as he continued to deliver stunning performances on screen. "I wasn't Harry Potter anymore," he later admitted. "I was a young man trying to figure out who I was, and that was terrifying." The turning point came after the final film wrapped. Daniel, then in his early 20s, finally confronted the reality that the series had defined his entire identity. Without Harry, who was he? For the first time, he faced the world not as a wizard, but as a man struggling to reclaim his life. Therapy, self-reflection, and a deliberate step away from the spotlight allowed him to begin healing. In time, Daniel found peace. He spoke openly about his sobriety and the lessons he learned from those difficult years. "I'm grateful for Harry Potter," he said softly, "but I had to learn how to live beyond him." His courage to be vulnerable inspired millions of fans who had grown up with him, showing that even heroes have their scars. Behind the wand and the fame was a boy who lived, not just through magic, but through survival. Daniel Radcliffe's journey revealed that true courage isn't about defeating Dark Lords. It's about facing the darkness within. For millions of fans, Emma Watson was Hermione Granger, intelligent, fearless, and endlessly determined. She embodied everything young girls admired: Grace under pressure, brilliance and loyalty. But while Hermione seemed perfectly confident, Emma herself was quietly struggling with doubts that would nearly drive her away from the series that made her famous. When Emma first joined the Harry Potter cast at just 10 years old, she had no formal acting experience. She was chosen from thousands of girls for her fiery spirit and sharp wit, qualities that mirrored Hermione herself. At first, the experience was magical, but as the years passed, the dream began to feel like a gilded cage. By the time Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix began filming, Emma was already questioning whether she wanted to continue. The fame was overwhelming. She couldn't go anywhere without being recognized. Paparazzi followed her every move, and gossip magazines dissected her appearance, friendships, and even her body language. "I felt like I was being watched all the time," she later said. "It didn't feel like my life belonged to me anymore." What few knew was that Emma seriously considered quitting the franchise around that time. She wanted to finish school, live a normal teenage life, and pursue an education, something that felt impossible under the intense schedule of filming and promotion. Warner Brothers executives even admitted they were terrified she might walk away. Losing Emma, producer David Heyman recalled, would have been like losing the heart of the series. Behind closed doors, Emma was torn. On one hand, she loved her co-stars. Daniel and Rupert had become like family. On the other, she longed for anonymity, for the simple experience of being just a girl and not a global icon. During a later interview for the Return to Hogwarts special, she revealed, "The fame thing had finally hit me. I remember thinking, this is forever. Am I ready for that?" Her parents and close friends encouraged her to take a break, to think about her future. But what ultimately convinced her to stay wasn't money or fame. It was the fans. Letters poured in from around the world, from young girls who said Hermione gave them courage to be themselves, to love learning, to speak up. Emma realized she had become part of something bigger than a movie franchise. She was part of a generation's identity. So, she stayed. But she also made a promise to herself, that she would reclaim her life once the series ended. And she did. Emma went on to attend Brown University, champion women's rights as a UN ambassador, and dedicate herself to causes far beyond Hollywood. Her decision to stay with Harry Potter while keeping her dreams intact became one of the most inspiring stories in modern film. Still, Emma never forgot how close she came to walking away. "It was hard," she admitted, "but I'm proud of that little girl who didn't give up, not just on the movies, but on herself." Behind Hermione's fierce intelligence and bravery was a young woman learning her own lessons about courage, the kind that doesn't come from magic, but from knowing when to stay, when to fight, and when to find your own path. While Daniel Radcliffe carried the story's destiny and Emma Watson embodied its intellect, Rupert Grint was the soul, the laughter, the loyalty, the heartbeat that made the Golden Trio complete. As Ron Weasley, Rupert captured audiences with his warmth and humor, the perfect counterbalance to Harry's seriousness and Hermione's precision. But what fans didn't know was that behind the jokes and easygoing charm, Rupert was struggling with something far more painful, a growing sense that he didn't quite belong. When filming began, Rupert was only 11, just like Daniel and Emma. Unlike them, however, he wasn't used to the constant spotlight. He came from a modest background in Hertfordshire, with no acting pedigree or media training. Acting in Harry Potter had been a dream come true, at first. But as the franchise exploded into a global phenomenon, Rupert began to feel himself fading into the background of something too big to control. "I loved being Ron," he once said, "but sometimes it felt like people forgot there was a person behind him." He noticed how the attention always seemed to gravitate toward his co-stars. Daniel was the title hero. Emma was the brains and feminist icon, and Rupert, well, he was often labeled the funny one. To many fans and journalists, he was comic relief, not complexity. And over time, that perception began to wear him down. The fame didn't suit him. He didn't crave red carpets or interviews. In fact, Rupert was naturally shy, uncomfortable in the limelight. He once revealed that he experienced severe anxiety during premieres and press tours. "I loved acting," he explained, "but I didn't love everything that came with it. The attention was overwhelming. I just wanted to go home. Between films, while others pursued projects or interviews, Rupert quietly retreated. He bought an ice cream truck, often driving around his village delivering treats to local kids, something that made him feel grounded again. "That's when I felt most like myself," he said. Not as Ron Weasley, just as Rupert. But, even with success and wealth, Rupert struggled to see his place in the post-Potter world. Casting directors typecast him. Fans couldn't separate him from Ron. "It's like the world decided who I was at 11, he reflected, "and I've been trying to find out who I am ever since." Despite the internal struggle, Rupert remained deeply grateful for the experience. His bond with Daniel and Emma never faded. They supported each other through doubts and fame fatigue. "We grew up together," Emma once said. "We saw each other at our best and at our most lost." In recent years, Rupert finally found peace in embracing the simplicity he always craved. He became a father, focused on small creative projects, and began speaking more openly about his mental health. He even returned to acting, not for fame, but for love of the craft. "I don't need to chase it anymore," he said in a 2023 interview. "I've learned that success doesn't mean being seen. It means being happy." The world knew Rupert Grint as the red-haired sidekick who made them laugh. But behind that grin was a gentle soul who carried the quiet struggles of being overshadowed and still found joy in ordinary life. Just like Ron Weasley, Rupert's true strength wasn't in magic. It was in his heart. When the cameras finally stopped rolling on Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2, something extraordinary happened on set. The cast, crew, and producers gathered for one last time in the Great Hall, the same place that had witnessed so many iconic scenes. The silence was heavy. Tears filled eyes, laughter mingled with sobs, and for the first time in over a decade, the people who had grown up together realized it was all coming to an end. For Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint, it wasn't just the end of a film series. It was the end of their childhood. They had entered the wizarding world as strangers and left as a family, bonded by something that no fame or fortune could replicate. "We grew up in this bubble," Daniel once said. "No one else in the world could ever understand what it was like, except us." That bond was forged through years of shared pressure, mistakes, and small moments that never made it into the headlines. On long filming days, they played games in the hallways of the studio, pulling harmless pranks and finding laughter between takes. When one of them struggled, Daniel with his anxiety, Emma with her doubts, or Rupert with his sense of belonging, the others quietly stepped in to lift them up. It was an unspoken rule among the trio: no one gets left behind. Even as the series' global fame grew to unimaginable heights, that loyalty never wavered. Behind the glamour, there were tearful nights, growing pains, and moments of self-doubt. But there was also compassion, humor, and trust, the kind that only forms when people endure something monumental together. After the final film wrapped, many assumed the trio would go their separate ways. And in a sense they did, pursuing different careers and passions. But their connection didn't fade. They still message each other on birthdays, reunite quietly away from the cameras, and support each other's projects. Emma once said, "We'll always be connected, even if we don't talk every day. There's an invisible thread between us, like magic." What fans never knew is that during the toughest periods of their post-Potter lives, that bond became a lifeline. When Daniel struggled with sobriety, Emma checked in often. When Emma faced media harassment at university, Rupert reached out with kindness and humor. And when Rupert doubted his career, Daniel encouraged him to trust his instincts. They were no longer co-stars. They were family. In the years that followed, each of them found peace in different ways. Daniel built a meaningful career in independent cinema and embraced his authenticity. Emma became a global voice for equality and empowerment. Rupert found happiness in fatherhood and a quieter life away from fame. And through it all, They carried the lessons they learned at Hogwarts, loyalty, courage, and love, into the real world. When they reunited for the 20th anniversary return to Hogwarts special, the emotion was palpable. The world saw 3 adults sitting where 3 children once stood, older, wiser, and forever changed by what they had shared. As Daniel's voice cracked while thanking Emma and Rupert whispered, "I love you," fans everywhere realized the truth. The real magic of Harry Potter wasn't in the spells or the castles. It was in the people, in their resilience, in their friendship, and in the love that endured long after the cameras stopped rolling. For all the fame, fortune, and success, what the cast revealed after all these years was something simple yet profound. The most powerful spell they ever cast was the bond they built with each other.